AI can never trump experience. And really, if you think about it, like we all have a phone in our pocket and it can answer any question we want in the world. Does that make us all wise or smarter even? No, it doesn't, because people, for the most part, don't even know what's possible. So they couldn't even search for the thing that might make their life a million times better. And so what you have to do instead is experience life in real time and stumble through it and be frustrated until you find that thing that's going to change your ability to work or live life. So AI can't replace creatives for the most part. Let's say that they can replace bad creatives, and they can replace bad marketers. Hey everyone, this is Mark DeGrasse, the president of Digital Marketer, and this is the podcast that keeps you up to date on everything you need to know when it comes to digital marketing, from the platforms you'd be focused on to the cutting edge tactics and tools that are working today. Today, I have multiple guests, David Canington, Adrian Boysel, and Brad Ball, and we're going to be discussing the role of AI in marketing and our kind of predictions and thoughts on how AI can impact the marketing industry, the marketing profession, and whether we're all going to be out of jobs in the near future. So, welcome, guys.
Hey.
Hey, thanks for having us.
All right. So I know a lot of marketers are concerned, I would say, about their, the impact of, say, PMAX on analytics and running paid ads, on creative apps like Lensa, doing amazing graphic design work, and just in general, the concept of copywriting being done by Chat GDP or GPT. I'm going to screw that up every single time. But basically, we won't have to write. We won't have to be creative with graphics or video, and even the content concepts can be come up with AI. So let's just start. We'll just go through each one of us. Do you think AI is going to replace marketers? Let's start with you, Brad.
That is a double-edged sword. It's yes and no. I think it's going to make some major changes to the marketing world, and jobs are going to shift, but will it completely replace people? Yes and no.
I like that. It's a little PC, but
well, it's PC, but it's, like for copywriters, for example, right? What AI can do right now can replace most copywriters, but you still have to have somebody manage the AI. And that's you're going to have more managers and less creators to some extent. And as AI evolves, because there's parts of it that are still not quite there yet. Those are the parts that are pretty amazing. And, some of the content you still have to review and edit or tweak so the voice makes sense.
That makes sense.
So yes and no.
Yes and no. All right. Let's go you, David.
I believe that, like Brad said, ultimately, there are going to be a lot of managers that are learning how to manage the tools of AI. And just the same thing that when the .com boom happened, where everyone thought that the websites were going to put all these industries completely out of business. Instead, the industries learned to take and adapt and use the tools of the internet to take and boost the performance of their business. I believe agencies can do the same. There are going to be some things that AI will do better. They will provide more accurate targeting for ads. It'll improve efficiency in ad creation. It'll be able to real-time optimization of ad campaigns or even personalized experiences for customers. But in all of that, it will need someone at the top level to help take and architect the overall structure of what needs to be put in place. And there's still the human factor that needs to be implemented through AI tools as a whole.
Love it. So AI as a tool. I agree with that. How about you, Adrian?
Oh, I love this question. I want to take a pretty hard stance on this. I think it's going to shake out the loose hands, the people who are really not in it for the right reasons, who don't really have the passion for it, who are just trying to use it as a tool to make money. I think it's going to eliminate a lot of those people, and they're going to try to find something new, something different. Just like we see people go from the solar industry to the mortgage industry to the car business to the hottest new trends like we saw with NFTs to now everybody's an AI expert, right? So I think that we're going to see a lot of people jumping around like we've seen with all these different trends. But ultimately, I mean, piggyback off what David said, you can't replace the psychological, the emotional, and even the creative flair that human beings have. And so it's just another tool in the bag. And I think people that don't use it are going to be regretting that in 2, 3, 4, 5 years by not using it, because the fact that I can take one of my illustrations, we did this yesterday with one of my artists in my community, I can take one of my illustrations that I did of a dirt biker. It was kind of like a grunge styled t-shirt for my NorCal Enduro brand, taking this dirt bike guy and bringing it into Midjourney and spitting out 16 different images that I could put on t-shirts within 5 minutes. 16 images in under 5 minutes that we spit out that were gorgeous. I mean, every single one of them, all I needed to do was put the NorCal Enduro logo underneath it or somewhere incorporating it into it. We took one of a California bear flag that I had, and I put the California bear in that program, and it spit out like 8 different versions of a bear on a dirt bike. And it was just unreal how fast you can implement this. But I think the thing that nobody's talking about yet that I think is going to be really important that I'll be talking about throughout my content is the consent. Where is the consent for the artists like myself, for the artists like Brad, for the artists like David? Where's the consent of where this stuff is actually coming from? Because right now, Midjourney and all these open AI and Chat GPT is pulling from the entire internet, but not everybody's consenting to have their artwork used. And so I think if you look at websites like ArtStation, there are thousands of people that are on ArtStation that are protesting. They've literally changed their profile pictures and their images on their profiles to a straight red circle with a line through it that says no AI inside of it. And there's some that have a green circle with no line through it that says, plus AI or whatever it says. But there are people that are consenting to their artwork being used for AI and people that are not consenting to it. And you can see a great example of this on ArtStation. So I think that it's going to be a mixed bag, but I think a lot of people are going to enhance the quality of their work rather than take away. I think we're going to see even better design work and better creative than we've ever seen. And one quick example is stores will be able to run ad campaigns. Online stores, big retail chains will be able to run ad campaigns with somebody's actual profile. They'll be able to get somebody's picture off of their social media profile and run an ad to them, showing those clothes on that specific person. So David touched on this with the personalization. I'll be able to see ads with the specific leather jacket or the specific hat on me because of AI. And that's really going to be powerful for targeting.
Oh, yeah, well, if I can speak briefly to what you said about the consent side of things, anytime there's an evolution of an industry or a specific product, the consent side is kind of like, it's neither here or there. All the people that built the foundations of how a certain industry was built, that a new technology came in and took over, all that knowledge that was up here that was then put into a machine that replaced the human interaction that built the widget. A person figured out how to build a widget, and it took that person a long time how to build the widget in the first place. Like, that's the same type of thing. Consent. Those things. I hate to say that, it's kind of like, since I'm not a creative, Brad's the creative. Since those things kind of have to be looked at, but at the same time, it's kind of like we're taking the foundations of human knowledge and putting them into a process, and taking that process and implementing steps to take something that may take 5 hours to take 5 seconds. And if we take the foundations of the human knowledge, the consent of everything that's done before, and we say that we can produce something that's never been produced before, we can create more realistic images, we can learn how to architect and shape the way a specific image or campaign or process is supposed to work based upon the knowledge that was developed before it. If we take that and we learn how to do it, I heard something that was said by, you can go and Google this, but there was a like a panel where George W. Bush and Bill Clinton were on stage, and this was years ago, and they were talking about how through the implementation of AI, it was going to change industries to the point to where, realistically, companies are going to have to be looking at 3-day work weeks because of the fact that there's going to be all these things that are going to be replaced by systems that make everything so much easier. And so, could it help things be better? Yes. Could it eliminate jobs? Yes. Could it we're kind of on that cusp right now to where it's going like this. It's just a steady incline of where it's learning. And I really think the floodgates are about to open pretty soon, where it's going to be a hockey stick and it's just going to shoot right up, and people are going to realize what they can actually do. And it's not always going to be the creatives or that realize it. The people that are going to realize it are the CFOs and the CTOs and the people that have their fingers on budgets, and they realize what can actually be done. I had this conversation with one of our clients the other day, where he was talking to us about copywriting, and there was a whole situation, and I pointed him to Jasper, and I told him, I said, you need to learn to get on board with this, because if you don't, your boss is going to get on board with it. If you don't know how to use this and someone else does, it will put you out of a job.
Yeah, I love that point, because I think we, as creatives, or, dealing with creatives a lot, you tend to default to like, oh no, the creative jobs are going away. But the way I see it is that the creative jobs are probably the last jobs that it will replace. Because if you look at, like you were saying, the function of AI, who's easier to replace, an accountant who lives by a book of rules and numbers, or a creative where all the concepts that they come up with are abstract and who knows where they came from? So I do think that, in terms of job roles, the accountants are going to have trouble. The IRS agents, except they work for the government, so they'll always have a job, no matter how good the technology gets. But yeah, those statistic functions, or even just pattern recognition, is going to be much easier for an AI to process that information versus, abstract ideas. Now, on the creative front, I also like how you said where's that knowledge come from? And if I think of like, hey, I'm going to go make a banner, I have my inspiration board on Pinterest, and I look at everybody's information and I don't cite it when I create something new. So even the sourcing of the data, as humans, we do it all the time. We call it inspiration rather than stealing people's concepts. But if I design a banner, I'm like, where did this idea come from? And I needed to cite where the idea came from. I wouldn't know how to find the sources. And two, I don't even know, because it happened in my head and it just occurred. So,
well, and sometimes you see something, you have an idea and you don't relate it to anything specific, because there's nothing really new under the sun at this point. When you look at music, how many times is music reusing stuff from, say, Mozart, or, as it has gone through history? I mean, I think Zeppelin was very guilty of that as well. You go back through history, there's really nothing new necessarily. And there's only so many ways you can design a website header, right? Or different things like that. And so as it relates to AI, and there are some things where AI will have a hard time to replace. As it relates to marketing and printing, there's some systems that can be created that AI could fulfill. But hey, we need a billboard. How AI, can it find that billboard? Is it going to work for the client? What's the traffic? You get into some traditional marketing things, AI can only go so far. And we've had this conversation, I think, last time with traditional marketing and digital marketing versus marketing as a whole. That as Facebook gets more expensive, there's other means of advertising that agencies need to look at to get the reach they need to, or to get that right customer. And that's where I think AI will fall short, is some of those traditional aspects that I think will come back to some extent in the future.
That makes sense. Well, and Adrian, I also like your point that you made about the intense personalization. So if you combine that with, say, Brad's concept of, say, analog and digital marketing still needs a human hand in it. If you combine that with customized ads based on the user, because if I see myself in a cool jacket, yeah, I'll be much more likely to buy that jacket versus seeing some random model who's maybe a different body type or in a different environment than I'm in. Then that's a much more effective means of advertising. Plus, you're not going to have any executive be like, I'm not going to use that based on humanity. They're not going to do that. They're like, money or jobs that will probably be replaced, just like the horse and buggy and the car. Like, I'm going to go for the cheapest option that's going to give me what I want. On top of the fact that most marketing people or just business executives in general don't care about where it comes from. They care that it works and they care that it's done fast and efficiently and cheaply, but where it came from, no, not necessarily. So,
Well,
okay.
And the relationship aspect of it too, right? Marketing at the end of the day is communication, and communication is relationship building. So if you're focused on building relationships, the tools like AI that you have to speed up that relationship building process and to leverage those, like if I do a video prospect, like if I'm making a video to a prospect and make it really personal and talk about what they're doing and what I liked and what I saw on their YouTube or their Facebook page, and I make it extremely personalized and show them that I took the time and effort to get to know them and who they are before I just sent them a direct message in Facebook or sent them a cold email, right? That difference in that communication and the chances of my response is going to be huge. AI is going to empower us to do that on a whole nother level.
Well, and I think just presenting the variations, because I don't know about you guys, but when I, had my agency and I say, hey, here's the 10 logos, like here's the 10 options, as the designer, you know which option is right. You're like, no, based on what you said, what you're trying to achieve and your target market, like this is the right answer. I can't say that, but that's the right answer. And
there's the option that you think you know what's right.
Yes. Well,
there's a difference because at the end of the day, like creatives are awesome in creating illustrations that are incredible, that look visual. But at the end of the day, there's what you think is right. But then if AI says this is what will actually work because it's pulling and it's auditing against real-time data, creative versus actual results, there's a difference there.
Yeah, but even real-time data. And so I'll give a creative example in marketing from when I was at Onnit. So I sold my company Onnit back in 2014. I was essentially the content executive and I had to work with the creative team. Now, the creative team was a bunch of guys who would prefer to play soccer and, have smoke something in the back in the afternoon. That's all I did. And I'd be like, what the hell's going on? Like, I'm just going to make the graphics myself. And they would always get super pissed because they're like, no, we formed this brand. We formed all the elements of the creative aspect because they're 10 years ahead of what people are doing right now. And I said, like, okay, that's some artist BS, and you want to do what you want. And that's the end of the story. But now I look back and now it's been about 10 years and they were completely right. The concepts they had were so ahead of their time that now everybody is following it 10 years later and nobody even realizes it because it's these lazy jerk creatives that came up with it. But they did it. And so even the time frame that you're saying, where you're saying real time, the real time can't project, or at least I haven't seen it happen, where they can project, here's what's going to be cool 10 years from now. And people will look back and say, here's where it started. I mean, really, it could, of course, project cultural trends into the next 10 years, but then you're talking about predicting the future, which I don't think AI is doing yet, but maybe I'm wrong.
No, I agree with you on that. I think that I think that there's a possibility that trends will evolve faster. Because trends have already started since the advent of the internet. Trends have to evolve faster because there's so many more communication points and so many things that have to be out there that are put in front of people's eyes that we live in it. We live in a world where we're seeing little tiny bites of information instead of reading full-blown articles. We're just reading headlines, and if they're consistently seeing that same thing over and over again, those trends are going to take and evolve much faster.
No, well, and actually does propose a dangerous feedback loop of it pulling the existing content, regurgitating it back into a new form that is essentially the same content, and then it just continues the cycle because that's what everybody is exposed to, and there's no consideration of should we be advancing this or not. And so that's a concept I didn't even consider, is that we're going to be stuck in a never-ending trend that never evolves because it doesn't have to anymore. So just in that vein, do you think that's a danger in terms of everybody utilizing the same AI components?
That's a tough one. I think that that creative flair, like the accidental, like some of my best design work I've ever done was like I hit something on my keyboard by accident. All of a sudden it like did something. I was like, whoa, what is that? Right. Like those happy accidents, as Bob Ross likes to call it, like you can't recreate those, you can't predict those. And so I think when you input stuff like that into the AI system, what it's going to spit out is going to be completely creative and unique, something that nobody has. So it's like the better question you ask, the better answer it's going to give you, right? That applies to textual, contextual, and it's also creative, I think, in a lot of different ways. So I think it's going to continue to grow, but I do see that potential for that kind of feedback loop of just kind of regurgitating the same stuff over and over and over again. But it's going to be the growth, I think, that we're going to experience as human beings from it, to be able to actually learn at a faster pace and then ask even better questions. Right, a question well asked is a problem half solved. I think the better question we ask, the better results we're going to start to see, and that's when that system is going to continue to evolve.
Well, I do think that creatives in general will start to rebel against conformity even more and be like, you know what, I could go more extreme, and then it actually could encourage creativity in a way.
Yep.
Brad, it looked like you had something to say.
No, I was just thinking through kind of the evolution of AI itself and how it's grown, in a short period of time. And, the first several, it was, pulling content from the internet. But at some point, when does it, for lack of a better term, become more aware of itself? And people are playing with that now. And, then it becomes like Skynet, right? If AI really learns and evolves and kind of learns on its own, because it's learning at such a vast rate, this continual loop, is that just because it's looking upon itself over and over, or at some point does it shift, knowing that that's not the right answer? You know what I mean? And how aware can AI actually get? And that gets into a whole other rabbit trail. But I think the tools are there for creatives to do some pretty awesome things. So I think it's the future is how we as creatives utilize that to simplify processes, to get new ideas, to spit out more images because we can get more things done in less time. That's where we're at right now. 10 years from now could be completely different. But
oh yeah, man. 10 years, that's like infinity to me. I'm like, oh crap, everything's moving so fast.
You were talking about On It, right? And I bought a t-shirt from them probably 10 years ago, right? And they had some really cool designs. This big monkey, back when Planet of the Apes came out, and I still have that shirt today. But for me to look at our future in 10 years, even looking back 10 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to predict where we'd be now 10 years later. And trends the same way. Like 2 years ago, my daughter, we need a Hydro Flask. Now it's a Stanley Cup. And Hydro Flask is gone, and now Stanley's in. It's like things are happening so quickly, and trends change so rapidly. I think AI is just going to enhance that moving forward.
I think so. Well, and one of the concepts I had this morning was that, in terms of an artist, like an artist has a vision in their mind, and then they have to develop all these skills to execute the vision. So they have to say, okay, well, I have this idea for a poster. Okay, I'm going to need to learn how to paint. And then I'm going to need to enhance it with graphics. And then I'm going to have to do this. And it involves a bunch of skills that you might not necessarily have right now. Now, for AI, I was thinking, well, your average person probably has awesome ideas. They just can't translate them into something that other people can see. So maybe AI is just this medium that, negates the need for skills. Do you think that's a possibility?
Definitely. I mean, I think, I'm writing a book about the creative entrepreneur, right? And, I've kind of gotten into a holding pattern, but part of the process is, if you think as kids, we're very creative and imaginative, but then what happens? We get stuck in a chair every day for school, and that creativity, unless you cultivate it, disappears. And every kid is pretty much on the same playing field as it relates to creativity and art. I mean, we all colored, some in between the lines, some outside the lines. That hasn't changed, but I would say AI could have the same effect with a creative, that the more you're creating, the more ideas you have. The less you do, the less you create, and the less imagination you have. And I think AI would just make that worse, if that makes sense.
Creative laziness. That's a really good one.
Yeah, I think that applies to all things. It's like, I'm not the strongest copywriter, and but we have copyright people on our team that that's all they do all day, and they're great at it because they've developed that muscle. It's a skill. Same thing with design and strategy, to be able to see things that other people don't see. I said I go back to the whole structure of learning how to use these as not necessarily the final the secret piece in the puzzle that's going to make it all work, but use it as a tool. It's another thing in your tool belt that helps you take and develop things better, or maybe even come up with more ideas, or iterate in ways that you couldn't have before. That kind of, oh, I didn't think of it like that. I can take it. It's like Adrian said, where he accidentally hit a couple keys on the keyboard, and it's like, well, crap, that was really cool. So it's kind of that same thing. It's like I started doing this whole creative world thing because I was at a friend's house one night after a party, and he showed me one of the green iMacs, one of the original iMacs, and he showed me iMovie on and I thought, oh my gosh, that's amazing. I didn't know you could do that. And because I saw that one thing, I saw that tool that he had, I immediately went into all the possibilities of what I could do if I had that tool. And that's what started me down the road of doing what it is that I do now. So it's people are going to see things when new ideas are presented to them, or they're going to come up with new ideas by being able to use tools in different ways. And I said, I think you just have to learn how to use it as a tool and not necessarily fight it, and see how it can improve and take you in directions that you weren't able to go on your own.
No, I love that concept. AI can never trump experience. And really, if you think about it, like, we all have a phone in our pocket and it can answer any question we want in the world. Does that make us all wise or smarter even? No, it doesn't, because people, for the most part, don't even know what's possible. So they couldn't even search for the thing that might make their life a million times better. And so what you have to do instead is experience life in real time and stumble through it and be frustrated until you find that thing that's going to change your ability to work or live life. So AI can't replace creatives for the most part. Let's say that they can replace bad creatives, and they can replace bad marketers. So, the way I kind of looked at it was because I was in real estate back in a long time ago, like the early 2000s. And back then the internet was new and everybody was afraid that Redfin was going to come in, and you don't need real estate agents anymore because Redfin can do it all for you, and Zillow and all these things. And then it turned out that no, you still need them. And now a boom has happened again. And the same thing happened with a bunch of people becoming real estate agents. And now there's going to be a crash, and a bunch of real estate agents are going to not be real estate agents anymore. Do you think the same thing's going to happen in marketing?
I've gotten an example for you, and this is AI it's a tool, which we've said, but when you look at, let's take fast food restaurants for example. Most are going into automated ordering or online, things like that, right? More, AI driven. Who is probably the fastest growing, that has the fastest drive-through around in fast food restaurants? Which one? Chick-fil-A. They get more people through. And how do they do that? By putting people outside in the drive-through, welcoming people, taking their orders. They're not doing it online or through a different situation, but they move more people. And I think people go there as well because they get that personal touch. It's our pleasure, that type of thing. And as AI grows, I think that's going to be a limiting factor to it, is because it takes out the personal touch.
Human connection. That was a great point.
No, I think that's the same. And just managing the relationship, because at the end of the day, I think when you hire a professional, you are ceding control of the situation to the professional who you respect and knows more than you about the situation. So even if you can do it. Like I could figure out how to fix my dishwasher. Am I going to actually do it? Maybe not. Am I going to trust my work? Maybe not. Am I going to be happy with the result? Maybe not. That's why you go to a professional.
I think I think that, like I said earlier, I think the people that are going to see it in different ways are the CFOs, the COOs, the CTOs. They're the ones that are going to see it different and say, I can have the people on my team who know how to use this. I can have 3 people use this instead of 5 people on my staff, and it'll cut my budget by X amount. And they're going to see it differently than we see it. So that getting over that is going to be a hurdle, because someone's going to tell them about it if they don't already know, and they're going to ask the question, which we ask in our business on a daily basis: what about this? Why aren't we using this? Is this a possibility? And since they're not the ones actually doing it, and all of us in this room know from a client's perspective, everything is always easier than it's perceived to be. Getting on board and being able to communicate from an agency standpoint the value of what we offer as humans in doing what it is we do it is the main hurdle that we're going to have to overcome in the next coming years.
Awesome. Well, let's get really specific, and we'll kind of end the discussion with this. 1 year from now, so the end of 2023, what is the impact of AI? And I say this specifically because within the last couple of weeks, the use of it within at least social media platforms is exploding. Everybody's on it. Everybody kind of acknowledges that it's neat, which I think is a catalyst moment for, well, maybe AI is good, and maybe I really like what it's doing. And now people are going to go in and adopt it. And to your point, David, things will accelerate. What do you think in terms of the marketing industry impact of AI in 2023? Now let's go through the list. So let's start with Adrian.
I think the personal experiences, like I think of Gary Vee when I think of this question, like what would Gary Vee say, right? What would Gary Vee do? And I think the personal experiences and the stories and the lives that we're living, those are going to become even more valuable to share in those personal experiences versus the information, because information is infinite. It's always expanding. It's always growing. Like the amount of information that we can take in our lifetime, no matter how intelligent we are, is probably less than 1%, right, of what's available to us. So information is going to become less valuable, right, even more than ever. And the actual application of that information and how we implement it into our life and the experiences that we're having, how I'm going to use it in my business. Last night I got up, my wife said something about, I'd love to get a Crunchy Cottage jingle. That's her company name. And I'm like, I got up out of bed. I walked over to my desktop. I went to the open chat or chat GPT, typed in Crunchy Cottage and like 5 or 6 different things. We make elderberry syrup and fire cider. And then I hit the button, and literally 5 seconds later, it spit out a full jingle. And I read it to her, and she's like, her jaw just hit the floor. She's like, I cannot believe how fast that it just did that. Right. So my input of her experience, her story, what she stands for, the health aspect, the handmade, like all the elements of her brand, I put that into that, and it spit out this completely unique and beautiful jingle. And I was like, boom, there you go. Done. 5 seconds. Like literally it was a 5-second task. You're welcome.
$500.
That would have taken me a month to come up with, of structuring a strategy session, full day, like all these different things. But because I know her brand so well, and I've kind of carried and helped her build this brand, I didn't have to spend all that discovery time. I just inputted it immediately, and it immediately spit out this beautiful jingle. And I can say, I don't like this one, make a new one, and it'll spit out another one right within seconds. So I could have 8 jingles within a matter of 5 minutes. And all of a sudden, so those are going to be the kinds of things that I think you're going to see my stories are going to enhance, other people's stories are going to enhance, but the actual information, the knowledge base itself is going to become less valuable. You're going to see a lot of the same, like we're seeing now, you're going to see a lot of the same stuff over and over and over again, because it's just regurgitating the same stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That was a great point.
I think the current, the current version of the GPT 3.5, it goes back, 3-4 years?
2020, I think.
Okay, so 2 years. So basically, and the whole database is supposedly less than 100 gigs. So if they want to take and build and improve upon that, they're going to have to expand backwards even further and allow it to go back past 2020. So, I have a similar experience to what Adrian just said. Is my son came in yesterday and we were talking, and I was actually showing him ChatGPT, and if you can't tell, that I'm kind of a musician. My son is as well, and he goes, can it write songs? And I let my son loose with it, and I open up my computer this morning, and I see a song that he generated with GPT, the Chat GPT, and oh my gosh, I think Taylor Swift has something to worry about. Wow. He gave it a description, told it to. He's like, I'm gonna have it write a breakup song. He's not breaking up with anyone, but it's kind of like he just wanted to see what it could do, and it's significantly impressive. Wow. That's all I gotta say. It's like, and there's literally docs on my computers with versions of that song, and then he's like, okay, have it write a rap song. Have it write a rap song like this artist. And it's like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. That actually sounds like the phrasing and the way that artist would speak. So I think to your question, Mark, where we're at a year from now, it's making it more and more difficult to be predictive on our end where we're going to be at a year from now, because I believe what this is going to touch beyond our circle or our bubble in the creative world, all the elements that this is going to touch outside of that as well, and the possibilities of what it can do. It's really, really hard to predict. And coming out of the past few years of all the things that we usually, okay, we're going to forecast and we're going to be forward thinking to everything that's going to happen. We've kind of thrown all that stuff out of the window over the past few years, because it's kind of like, seriously, but we always want to be forward thinking for our businesses, for our clients, and making sure we're staying on top of what's possible and what's coming. But I believe, like I said, my belief is it's going to come a point really, really soon where the floodgates are going to open up, and it's going to be like a hockey stick, to where it just shoots up about what it's going to be capable of doing, and the limits of what it is going to be touching are going to be fairly infinite.
Well, I think that's a huge statement. Hold on to your butts. That's
hold on to your butts.
This is gonna be a crazy ride, but literally, like I said, it's gonna be fun, and I think that there's gonna be I think Adrian said this at the beginning. There's gonna be people that recognize this and get on board, and then there's gonna be others that don't, and they're gonna fall by the wayside. The cream is going to rise to the top in the situation, and we're going to learn how to use this as a tool within our businesses. We're going to build platforms that improve our processes that we can then offer to our clients and our clients' clients and whatnot. So I think that's where we should be going with this, is figuring out how ways to use it just to improve everything we do as a whole.
Yeah, I'll add on to that into the year that really over the next year, we're going to probably do a lot of trial and error. We're talking about what it can do, but in many cases, AI has failed in various areas. And, PMax gets a lot of credit because it's the AI-driven tool, right? Well, our experience from clients and ourselves is we get a lot of crap leads at times from that. Is that the AI? Is that us? Well, as AI learns, it's not going to measure up in certain scenarios. And so, we've shifted and done different marketing things, utilizing AI, but also other strategies to get that right target customer and to eliminate some of that junk. Because let's just for numbers, if we get 10 junk leads and one of them is good, but we waste time on 9 of them that aren't good because it didn't push us good leads, and that wastes our time in growing the business. And that's, I think over the next year, you're going to have a lot of that trial and error as tools get developed, as new things come about as it relates to marketing, whether it's Performance Max or other tools that come out to utilize that better, it's going to evolve, and we're going to have to adapt with that as well.
No, that makes sense. I think the point of it being a tool, very valid. I think that it's the people who are creative are going to be able to use it. My only fear is that, because at one point I'm like, okay, well, the creatives, the cream will rise to the top. It'll be a culling of all these people who don't care enough, don't have the passion, don't have the skills, don't have the mindset to use this new tool. They'll go by the wayside. But on the flip side, I do think it's going to unlock a bunch of people who are creative that have never really identified as creative because they haven't taken the time to develop skills, are now going to be able to express themselves in ways that are incredible and unpredictable. And it may explode the amount of people in the world, because you don't have to spend the next 5 years learning how to draw or learning how to write a song or learning how to graphic design, because you could just be like, oh, I have this concept and it's a panda on the moon and he has a Coke and he's blah, blah, blah. And then boom, oh my gosh, that's an incredible idea. And it's timely, and it's, you can incorporate any aspect you want just by talking to a machine. Like that is incredible. And the other side is for creatives. I think the power that we'll have is to be able to go into new environments that people can't understand right now. VR, AR, these environments that are, we haven't had the processing power or capabilities or even the skills. You can't even develop the skills in there a lot of times to make creative aspects in there. Now these machines will be able to translate your ideas into these new environments. And I think those are the environments where real creatives will live, and everybody else will be as creative as you want to be. But like your point, David, I think it's I have no idea. And it's going to be,
I'd rather as it relates to art AI, from what I've played with and seen, most of it isn't near where it needs to be yet. Like as an artist, because I see things that most people don't. When we were first looking at photographs being reproduced, I'm like, I can pick out the AI version just because it's not there yet. And
but
so
the digital generation, the digital art is pretty amazing.
Oh yeah, that's different. Now, even then, sometimes there was a line that was sent to me by one of our employees, and it looked really cool. But details wise, like, well, the eyes, there's certain parts that are off that only an artist would probably recognize. Or, I used to have to go do press checks, and you have to find all the things that are wrong before it gets printed. You have to get trained for that for the most part, or know what you're looking at. And these AI people that are using these AI tools, they don't really know how to see the things that are off necessarily. And that's where a creative can really differentiate themselves from an AI, is how to use those tools to really enhance. And when they fall short, how do you take that and make it your own kind of thing?
When you said right there about falling short, I think where a lot of creatives, specifically because it's centered around creatives, fall short is not just the relationship building, but the sales aspect of being a creative as well. And so many of them are introverted and are afraid to sell. I wrote a poem. Well, I didn't write it. The AI wrote a poem. I just inputted the information for my wife. Literally in 5 seconds, I just put in like what we had been through, her name, how long we'd been together, and it spit out like the most amazing poem. And my wife read it and she got all choked up. She's like, "Oh my God, did you write this?" And I said, "No, the AI did."
Yes, I did.
I put,
Dude,
take
credit. You architected it.
Yeah.
You architected it. Just take credit.
That's hilarious. See, and so I think the ability that creatives are going to have to be able to build relationships and grow relationships using the power of something like ChatGPT is going to be just insane. It's going to level the playing field for a lot of them to be able to actually say what they want to say in a more efficient and powerful way.
No, I think that really highlights the point. It's going to be an enhancer, and I think it could be whatever the creative aspects you want it to be.
I would say
Luddite,
Yeah, I would say, Mark, I would say to the thing about where we're going to be in a year from now. I would, the one thing that we talk about in our company is that we always have to be okay with is we have to be okay with change, and being ready to adapt to change, and finding the opportunity in the midst of change. And as long as we can do that, then we will continue to move forward. If we try to stay where we're at and we keep doing the same thing we did 6 months ago, we're going to fall behind. Things are evolving at such a rapid pace that is a simple fact of being able to be a successful business in today's market.
Yeah. Well, and at the end of the day, that's a good thing. It's we have too many brands these days that don't have the best products, don't have the best intentions, don't have the best anything, and are ahead of the market. They control everything. And I think this is, could be the great leveler of all aspects of business and how things operate. So should be exciting. I think we'll definitely have to keep exploring this. Maybe we'll do a webinar. If you're a listener, please look for that in January 2023. And then next year, we should definitely plan on meeting again and say, oh my God, could you believe that happened? Except we'll all be in a VR environment and we'll be playing pickleball or something while we're doing a podcast in VR.
As long as it's not in Meta, I'm good with that.
In Meta. Like, oh, could you believe they won? All right, we'll find out. Well, thank you so much, guys. We'll definitely be chatting about this in the near future. And any concepts you want to elaborate on, we'll probably be making an agenda for that webinar we discussed briefly. And it'll be out soon. So stay tuned for that. Thanks thank you so much for listening. Be sure to hit that follow button so you get notified when all of our new episodes release. Please share this with that friend who is clueless about digital marketing. And don't forget to visit digitalmarketer.com, where you can access all of our courses, certifications, and training programs. Thanks again, everyone, and we'll see you next time.